Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I was driving back from my cousin's wedding, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, when I saw her. She stood by the side of the road under a flickering streetlight, a pale figure wrapped in a white hoodie and jeans. She wasn't waving, wasn't hitching her thumb out, just standing there, staring straight ahead, her hands shoved deep into the pockets of her hoodie. It was freezing. My dashboard read 2 degrees Celsius, and the night air clung to the windshield like a death grip. I had been on the road for nearly 2 hours, my body aching from the long drive, my brain fogged from exhaustion. Picking her up felt like the right thing to do. I slowed down and rolled the window down just enough for my voice to slip through. Need a ride? She didn't move for a second. Then, almost mechanically, she nodded and stepped toward the car. She slid into the passenger seat without a word. No hesitation, no thank you. Just shut the door softly and settled in, hands resting in her lap. That's when I noticed how cold she was. Not just a little cold, freezing. Even with the heater blasting, she shivered, her breath misting up the inside of the windshield. And she had nothing with her. No bag, no phone. Just sat there, staring straight ahead. I tried to push down the uneasy feeling that crawled up my spine. "Where are you headed?" I asked, keeping my voice light. She didn't answer right away. She turned her head toward me in a slow, deliberate movement, her face barely visible in the dim glow of the dashboard lights. Then, in a soft voice, she said, "Home." That was it. Just that one word. I nodded, even though something about her answer felt off. Home where? How far? But I didn't press. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she had been stranded for hours. I focused on the road ahead, telling myself I was just overthinking. Then, 5 minutes later, she spoke again. "It's been a long time since you've been back, Arslan." My fingers clenched around the steering wheel. My heart stuttered. I never told her my name. I tried to swallow the sudden lump in my throat. My mind raced, searching for an explanation. Had she seen my ID somewhere? Maybe my cousin mentioned me at the wedding. I turned my head toward her, my pulse hammering in my ears. But she was gone. The seat beside me was empty. I swerved the car, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My hands were slick with sweat, my legs trembling against the pedals. The door hadn't opened. There was no sound, no movement. She had just disappeared. The air inside the car thickened, pressing against my chest. Then, out of the corner of my eye, something flickered in the rearview mirror. I looked up, and there she was, sitting in the back seat, her head tilted, her lips curled into a grin that didn't belong on any human face. My stomach dropped, her eyes black, endless, empty. Her hoodie, now damp and stained with something dark. Her fingers curled over the back of the seat, her nails too long and too sharp. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. I slammed my foot on the gas, my mind screaming, my heart thrashing in my chest. The car fishtailed on the road, my vision blurred, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. The headlights cut through the darkness like a blade, illuminating the empty road ahead. My house wasn't far now. I just had to make it home. I refused to look in the mirror again. The minutes stretched, twisting, and warping in my mind. The road seemed longer, the air colder. My ears rang with the sound of my own heartbeat, a rapid, frantic drumbeat of fear. Then a whisper, low, soft, right against my ear. I never left Arslan. I don't remember pulling into my driveway. I don't remember turning off the engine. But suddenly, I was there, parked in front of my house, hands shaking so badly I could barely unclench them from the wheel. The car was silent. The back seat was empty. I stumbled out, my legs weak beneath me, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The night air bit at my skin, but I didn't care. I just needed to get inside, lock the doors, turn on every light. But as I fumbled for my keys, I noticed something that shouldn't have been there. In the frost on my windshield, fingerprints, dozens of them, long, thin, pressed against the glass as if someone had been crawling on it. I ran inside, locking the door behind me. I barely slept that night, and I never drive that road again. Story 2. It started on a long, lonely highway. One of those empty roads that seemed to stretch forever, swallowed by darkness on both sides, only occasionally interrupted by a distant gas station or a flickering motel sign. I had been driving for hours, heading home after visiting an old friend in another city. It was late, past midnight, maybe closer to 2, but I felt fine. I had my coffee, my high beams cutting through the void, and nothing but the sound of my tires on the asphalt to keep me company. Then I saw it, a semi-truck, old and battered, with rust creeping along its trailer like veins. It had no company logo, no visible markings, nothing. Just a looming presence in my rear view mirror, its headlights glowing dimly. I didn't think much of it at first. Truckers drive all night. It wasn't unusual to see one out this late. But then it stayed. Every time I checked my mirror, it was there. The same distance. The same dim glow of headlights. I switched lanes. So did it. I slowed down, pretending to check my phone, hoping it would pass me. It slowed down too. A cold, crawling unease settled in my stomach. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired. I took a deep breath and shook it off. I pressed down on the gas, speeding up to 90, then 100. The truck kept up, not in a frantic way, not like some impatient driver trying to overtake. No, it was smooth, effortless, like it had all the time in the world. I felt the first prickle of fear then, real fear, the kind that starts in your gut and spreads to your fingertips, making them tingle. I turned on the radio, hoping for some distraction, but all I got was static. I flipped through the stations, but there was nothing, just that empty, dead sound hissing through the speakers. Then, through the static, I heard it, a voice, low and crackling, like it was coming from 1,000 miles away. Don't look back. I froze. The words weren't clear. They weren't spoken in a normal voice, but more like a whisper buried beneath the static. A warning. I swallowed hard, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My brain fought against it, against the absurdity of it. Maybe the radio was picking up interference. Maybe it was. The lights went out. Not my cars. The trucks. I checked the mirror. The semi was still there, but its headlights were gone, swallowed by the night. All I could see was the outline of the cab, the massive grille, the skeletal frame of the trailer stretching into the darkness. Then, through the faint glow of my taillights, I saw something else. A figure, sitting in the driver's seat. Not a man, not normal. It was tall, its head nearly scraping the inside of the cab. Its eyes, God, those eyes were glowing red, burning like embers in a dying fire. And it was smiling, a wide, impossible grin stretching too far across its face. I slammed the accelerator. The car roared forward, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. The road blurred beneath me. 90, 100, 110. The trees on either side became a streak of black. I didn't care. I didn't dare slow down. But the truck kept up. I could hear it now. The deep, rumbling growl of its engine, the whisper of its massive tires on the road. It wasn't behind me anymore. It was beside me. I turned my head just for a second, just long enough to see. The window, the driver. It was staring at me, its grin even wider now, stretching impossibly, unnaturally, like something wearing human skin for the first time and not quite getting it right. Then it lifted one hand and waved. I screamed. My car veered off the road, tires skidding against the pavement as I fought to regain control. For a moment, I thought I was going to crash, that this was how it ended, wrapped around a tree in the middle of nowhere, my body discovered days later by some poor highway patrol officer. But then, the truck was gone. I blinked, gasping for breath, my pulse slamming in my ears. The road was empty. The night was silent. I pulled over, my whole body shaking. I sat there for a long time, gripping the wheel, my breaths coming in ragged, uneven bursts. I didn't drive home that night. I found the nearest motel, locked the door, and sat on the bed with the lights on until the sun came up. I told myself it wasn't real, that I was just tired, that I imagined the whole thing. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving alone, I see those headlights again, far in the distance, creeping closer, and I never look back. Story 3. I was driving through the countryside late at night, a little past 1 a.m. The road was the kind you see in horror movies, narrow, winding, flanked by towering trees that turned into black walls on either side. No streetlights, no houses, no signs of life. Just me, my headlights cutting through the dark, and the hum of my car's engine. I wasn't scared at first. I had driven this way plenty of times before, heading to my parents' house. It was supposed to be a surprise visit. My mom had been telling me how much she missed me, and I figured showing up unannounced would make her day. But then I saw him. At first I thought it was an animal, just a shadow in the distance. Maybe a deer standing in the middle of the road. I slowed down, squinting at the figure ahead. As I got closer, my stomach tightened. It wasn't an animal. It was a man. He stood dead center in the road, facing my car, not moving, not even shifting his weight, just standing there, as if he had been waiting for me. I hit the brakes hard, my tires skidding slightly. The man didn't react, didn't flinch. He just stared. My first thought was that maybe he was hurt. Maybe his car had broken down somewhere. But as my headlights washed over him, I realized something was very, very wrong. He was tall, unnaturally thin, dressed in a dark suit that looked like it had been soaked in the rain. His face was pale, almost gray under my headlights. But it was his eyes that made my skin crawl. They were hollow, black pits, and his mouth. Jesus Christ, his mouth was stretched into a grin so wide it looked like his skin might split apart. I honked. No reaction. The silence in the car was suffocating. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. Something inside me screamed, "Go around him. Just go." I inched the car forward. Just as I was about to swerve around him, he twitched. A sharp, jerky movement, like a puppet yanked by an invisible string. His neck snapped to one side, then back. His arms spasmed at his sides. Then, without warning, he ran straight at my car. I don't remember making the decision to hit the gas. I just did. The car lurched forward, tires screeching, the smell of burning rubber filling the air. I swerved hard to the left, just barely missing him. But as I passed, I caught a glimpse of him in my side mirror. He was still grinning, and then I saw them, dozens of them, lining the trees on both sides of the road. They were just standing there, half hidden in the darkness, their hollow eyes locked onto my car. Some were men, some were women, but all of them had the same grin, the same unnatural stillness. I nearly lost control of the car. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely keep my grip on the wheel. I didn't dare look back again. I just drove, as fast as I could, as far as I could, until I reached the familiar streets of my hometown. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, I was drenched in sweat. My breathing was ragged. My hands were numb from gripping the wheels so hard. I ran inside, locking the door behind me. My mom, half asleep, came out of the bedroom, surprised to see me. "Are you okay?" she asked, frowning at the way I stood there, shaking. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and muttered something about being tired. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying what I had seen over and over again. Maybe it was a hallucination. Maybe I was too tired and my brain had started playing tricks on me. But deep down I knew it was real. And the worst part, I still see them. Not always. Not every night. But sometimes, when I'm driving alone, I'll catch a glimpse of something in my rearview mirror. A shadow standing by the side of the road, grinning, waiting.